The Fantastic Four have arrived in Marvel Rivals, and people are excited to play as Marvel's first family. They're particularly excited to play as Mr. Fantastic, and it's also reminded people, hey, doesn't him and Luffy have similar powers? And it's also got people arguing, hey, who'd win in a fight? So let's talk about it. Hey, Internet, I'm Chris, and this is the place on the internet where I talk about comics, movies, games, and things I'm generally passionate about. So Marvel Rivals has been taking over many people's lives, and now that season 1 just dropped today, Mr. Fantastic is a part of the game, which is fantastic. And he has some cool abilities, and I think the developers did a good job of making him exciting, interesting, and also make him use his powers in very creative ways that I think in the comics he doesn't really do. And that has got people thinking, like, hey, like, has he ever used his powers in these ways, similar to Luffy, who has a similar power set? And also, who would win? And like most arguments on the internet, it's devolved into a gatekeeping thing where people are just yelling at each other instead of having some fun, like you should, and which I hope we do. So before we get into it, please leave a like, comment, subscribe. Let me know who you think would win between Luffy and Mr. Fantastic. So first, disclaimer. I'm more of a comic guy. I've always been a comic kid. I've also liked anime, but as a kid growing up, I was more of a Dragon Ball Z and Yu Yu Hakusho fan. More recently, I've been getting into manga and some other animes like Kaiju Number 8, Blue Lock, and I've started volume 1 of One Piece. It's actually behind me right here. So, and when you say started, well, there's 1,000 chapters. So, I started it and, it's fun. I like the Netflix series. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I am the number one Piece fan, especially when there are so many day ones online that would immediately call me out for my lack of knowledge. But that doesn't disqualify me from having a little fun and talking about who would win between Mr. Fantastic and Luffy. Now, first, just from my peripheral knowledge of One Piece and Luffy's powers, I have to say, Luffy, if it's just a straight up hands one-on-one thing, would win. One Piece fans, you got that. And the reason I say that is because in the comics, and Mr. Fantastic has been around for 60, 70 years. So he's done a lot of things, and he's probably used his powers in similar ways to Luffy. But from a physical perspective, I don't think he's as creative as he could be. I find Plastic Man from DC a lot more creative with his elasticity than Mr. Fantastic is. And Reed is really creative with his mind. He's a superior intellect. He's one of the greatest minds in the multiverse. He has the Council of Reeds. He's both one of Marvel's greatest heroes, and also one of its greatest villains as the Maker. Really great with his mind, but just with his fist, not so much. He always defaults and defers to the Thing, Ben Grimm, when he has those physical fights. And now, again, there's been some moments he's used his powers in creative ways, but again, he's not as creative as he should be. Whereas Luffy has multiple forms, has the willpower of an anime protagonist, which means that he's going to meet any challenge that's in front of him, especially a physical one. And he could transform into different forms, like particularly Gear 4, Gear 5. What is Mr. Fantastic going to do with that? And like Mr. Fantastic Reed, most of the time he's just trying to wrap himself around people and choke them out, which is not really creative when you could do so much more. And like I said, I want to give credit to NetEase, the developers at Marvel Rivals. You can tell, like, hey, they took some inspiration from One Piece just based on him being able to deflect ults and stuff like that. So maybe the Marvel Rivals version, Mr. Fantastic, could go up against Luffy 1v1. But if we're being real, he's going to lose that battle. And I've always loved, like, in terms of One Piece, the anime, I've actually loved the movies. I've seen the movies more so than the anime. I seen One Piece Gold, which I really like, and I think Red. So those two movies were really fun, and I always really appreciated Luffy as a character in terms of his willpower and just how positive he is and exciting. And that's something Reed doesn't have. Reed, he is super smart, kind of smug, because on top of being smart, he has a great family, he has a great wife, all those things. So again, from a physical perspective, I'm going Luffy just because, again, he's going to meet any challenge with his willpower. Now, I think in this fight, it's a little like you kind of have to approach it in a little bit of like how you would look at anyone versus Batman. With Batman, it's basically like, hey, if he has prep time, he's going to win. And if Mr. Fantastic has prep time, I'm sorry, Luffy, you're gonna lose. Because when you think about Mr. Fantastic, he'll probably give him like 10 minutes, and once he finds out about your weakness that you can't swim, he's gonna create like a, I don't know, like a dimensional orb that sends you just in an endless ocean that you can never get out of. Now, Luffy again is has extraordinary willpower and maybe will find a way to get out of it. But I think Reed Richards, if you give him some time, and he's done this with plenty of Marvel villains that are, mind you, Fantastic Four villains before they became Avengers villains, so Galactus and Doctor Doom. If he has concocted plans and devices to defeat these villains, I think Luffy is cooked. Like literally, Luffy is trying to be king of the pirates, whereas Reed is trying to solve world hunger. He is saving the universe. So when you think from a bigger perspective, and if he has that time and that prep time, Reed wins every time. So yeah, I think that is where we stand in the Luffy. Now you could go into sort of literally tiers and power scaling and all that, but the reality is it's pretty simple when you look at this fight. If it's physical, just hands, they run into each other on the street, Luffy is destroying Reed. And if it's time, hey, we're gonna fight on Friday. Give me, this is the time. Reed will win. Now, what do you think? Do you think Reed Richards or Luffy would win? Let me know, especially you One Piece fans. Like I said, I am newer to the One Piece fandom. I'm trying to get more and more into it. So just let me know if there's anything I didn't consider and leave it in the comments. Let me know if you're playing Marvel Rivals. I am. I'm loving it. It's been fun. It's the most excited I've been around a superhero game for quite a while since Spider-Man 2. So it's been a lot of fun. But yeah, let me know, guys. Peace.